All right, let's do this. Hey YouTube, how's it going? Today I'm going to do a video on the P1P/P1S, good, bad, ugly. I'm going to make this review as painless as possible. I have a piece of paper right underneath you guys that I'm going to read off of because there's a lot of things I have listed. After having these printers for close to, what I'd say, a year and a half, if not a little longer than that, this one here just surpassed, I believe, 1,000 print hours. This printer has 1,037 hours. This is Shadow. It's my AMS monster. Plan to add more to it. This printer over here is Pumpkin. I believe this one has just over 2,000 hours on it. Yep, 2,100 hours on this one. So I think I'm ready to make a review on these that should be relatively easy for you guys to understand, especially with the sale going on right now with Bambulab. I know a lot of people are confused. I've had several people reach out and ask me what kind of printer would I buy, here's my budget. So I'm going to make this and hopefully it'll persuade or dissuade you guys from making different choices. Alright, so I'm going to start off with the good. One of the best things about both of these printers right here, and I'll give you a heads up, this is the Bambulab P1S. This was bought obviously as a complete set with the combo. This right here was the Bambulab P1P. When it originally came out, the P1S was not an option. And this was upgraded completely to be a P1S. So one of the things I was going to start with is setup time. These printers out of the box, they say 15 minutes setup time. I mean, if you're like a wizard, sure, but realistically it's anywhere from 15 to 40 minutes. As you can see, they take up a decent amount of room, so maneuvering them is kind of what takes longer than setting up. Setting up is taking 3 screws out, turning it on, and letting it go through self-test. I mean, that's really it. And that takes 30 minutes, so it's really not a 15-minute setup and go. Next good thing I would say would have to be the build volume. These are a 256 millimeter cubed. There is one thing that I'm going to put in the ugly section that if you know, you know, but I will cover it later. But overall, 256 millimeters has been more than enough for just about everything that I've done on this printer. There's only been a couple instances where maybe 300 millimeters would have been better. But again, 256 has covered just about everything that I do on a daily basis. The speed at which the printer prints is my next good thing. It prints right around 300 to 500 millimeters. It really depends on where you set it. I run it typically about 400 millimeters per second, and I seem to have best success there. Of course, if I'm doing something a little bit more difficult, I'll slow it down. But in general, the 400 range is what works best for me. And you honestly can't beat the speed right now. I know there's a lot of other companies coming out with machines that can do speeds that fast, but I still think Bambulab has kind of got it in the bag. I think Prusa is pretty close. They just need to make a Core XY that kind of handles that, which would really go into making the machine more durable, I would think, because bed slingers just aren't the most durable machines. My next good thing would be quality of print. The print quality on these things is basically awesome. I mean, just as a heads up here, right? This just finished and it'll be up on the Etsy store. This is a shiny chibi Charizard, and this just came off. This is a 20-hour print. There's more than just one of them, of course, but the ability to print something like this with little to no worry really speaks to what these machines can do, and that this model alone right here covers a lot of the things and the good aspects of this list here. So I'm going to move on to the next part because quality of print is quality of print. It's really nice. The only caveat to that thing I'll cover in the bad, but we'll get there. The next thing I would say is ease of use with Bamboo Studio. So making something with this, like this, is very easy to do in Bamboo Studio, especially when it comes to painting. The only time it's really difficult is if you have a ton of triangles, and if you slice, you know. If you don't slice, triangles are what a model is based off of, so the more triangles, the more detailed it is, but it also makes it harder to paint it. But Bamboo Studio does a pretty good job handling it and communicating with these devices on what to do. I have not had any major issues with Bamboo Studio slicing something incorrectly on these machines. I have had that happen on the A1 Mini, but I'll do a review of that machine later on. Next thing I'm going to get to is the fully enclosed or enclosable. So obviously this is a fully enclosed printer. I mean, that's blatantly obvious if you can't tell, which is really nice. I have to admit, it does make sure that you don't have any failed prints from, say, dust collection, like this one over here does. I've only failed a couple times due to dust building up in the build plate, especially where I live in the Dust Bowl. And a P1P, if you get it, is totally enclosable with little to no issue. This was the ARC enclosure. I bought it when it first came out. Haven't regretted it since. I should have bought the upgrade kit to go to the P1S just for a cleaner look, but the customization's there, and that's what kind of makes it awesome. You can also do companion cube. I think Bamboo has some pretty awesome things, and people have modded that to the end of the earth, and it just makes it nice. Fully enclosed really does make a massive difference, especially when it comes to heat control, temperature control, especially because I don't think you guys can see it. There's an AC unit right above me, a mini split that blows down on these machines, and I never have to worry due to the fact that they're enclosed. It also helps if you have pets, if you keep them low to the ground. My dogs have noses that boop things. And they do boop the printers every once in a while, but because they're enclosed, it doesn't matter. Another thing on that good list is you can have up to 4 AMSs. This one has 2, this one has 1. That one's getting another one soon. And it makes it really nice for multicolor printing, if you like multicolor printing. If you don't, then, I mean, the only reason I'd get an AMS is so I don't have to switch colors every time. That's really the greatest thing. AMSs make it really easy to swap colors as well. No reaching behind the printer to do any of that BS. You can just pull it right out of these AMS boxes, and it takes 10 seconds. It's really quick. Next thing I'm going to go to is reliability and the auto bed leveling system. So I'm one of the people that runs auto bed leveling every single time on these printers, on all 3 of them. Every single time without fail. I do not care. I run it. It's 5 minutes. I can wait 20 minutes if it's a 15-minute print. I do not care. It makes it really nice, and because of that, I have had very few builds not stick to the plate. And with that, I've had very few builds lift from the plate. Of course, if you're printing ABS, it's a different story, but these still do a very good job of that first layer. I'm almost never worried about the first layer, and when I am, it's just a quick wash. It's good to go. So hot soapy water is all I use. Sometimes if I'm printing like ABS, I'll use IPA or something, but other than that, I don't have any major issues. Up next, I'm going to move on to the reliability aspect of that. There really is nothing on these printers that I have to worry about when I send them to print, except one thing that I put in the ugly section that is very important that you know about, because it could damage your machine. But other than that, it's relatively simple to use, and the reliability is there. My wife can send it to print and not check on it all day, and I get home and it works just fine with no issues, and my prints look fantastic. Up next, I'm going to go to the UI. So these little screens right here are awesome. They're super simple. There's not much to them. The A1 Mini over here does have a little bit of a better UI, I think, because of the touchscreen. It's easier to use. But overall, these little screens give you all the information. If my wife, who knows little to nothing about 3D printing, can find what she's looking for on that, then that means it's very simple to use. Sorry, honey. It had to be said. But it does mean that the UI is easy and simple to use, which means people who are just getting into the hobby shouldn't have a hard time understanding how that UI works and where to find certain settings. Last thing on the good list for me would be it's aesthetically pleasing. So with the customizability of this machine right here, you can make it look however you want. I know mine's bright neon orange. What was I thinking in a gray room? It looks cool. Screw off. This one, on the other hand, is just a black box. It looks really nice, really clean, and it kind of adds the aesthetic of a darker room, a cleaner room. It just looks really nice, and you don't have to worry about anything looking trashy. I know with a lot of the bed slingers, half the time I would use mine to hang stuff on the top of the bed rail, because why not? But you end up just putting random things there, and they just, open frame printers don't look nearly as nice as these do. That's kind of a stupid thing to put in the good, but I think it builds a lot to the quality at which Bamboo builds their machines. Next, I'm going to move on to the bad section, and this is a little bit nitpicky in some ways, but I think it's important for people who really are contemplators and they like to think before they make actions, unlike me. You need space for these printers, and it might not seem like you need a lot of space. The A1 Mini here actually uses up a little bit more space than one of these does. When I say space, the hardest thing to remember is that out the back of the machine is where the poop comes from. And if you put it against a wall, there's not any room to go get that. So you need to space it away from the wall so you can put something back there to collect the waste. And the size at which this is, I think it's 16 inches by 16 inches. I'd have to measure that and check, but it's one thing that you need to account for. And I know I would have 2 more of these machines, but I just don't have the room for them, especially in a room this small. So it makes it difficult to justify more when I don't have space, but we can always make space, right? Another thing on the bad list is loud. They're loud. They are not quiet printers. If you want a quiet printer because you have small children or you have not a lot of space and you're in like a studio apartment or something like that, the volume at which these print is astounding, especially if you print with the door open or if you leave this lid open on the AMS. It changing colors or feeding filament is just loud. It's just the nature of the beast, but it is a loud printer. There's no noise cancellation on these devices, so there's not much you can do. And there's modifications you can do to the device kind of to do that, but I wouldn't recommend that unless you know what you're doing. Another thing on these printers that I don't understand why it isn't there, maybe it was a reason to upsell you to the X1 or the X1 Carbon. There is no dynamic flow calibration built into the printer. The A1 Mini right here has dynamic flow calibration built in because it has a LiDAR sensor on it. These don't have that, and I understand why it's to push you into the X1, but I mean, come on, if that printer's $200 right now and it has flow dynamic, they could have easily put it on these with little, it's just a software change, but again, you need a camera, so you need LiDAR, but it should still have an option to upgrade to that so you can use it, but that's not even there on these. And I wish it was because I'd probably do it. And they say, oh, just buy an X1. Man, for an X1, I could buy one of these in a combo and a bunch of filament and be better off than just flow dynamic, because you can print a file to do it yourself. Next on my bad list, I'm going to move into, this is a caveat. When you buy these printers, they come with a standard nozzle, right? So what that means is it comes with a stainless steel nozzle and it comes with normal extruder gears. Both of these printers, right off the rip, I pulled the extruders out and I put hardened steel extruders and stainless and hardened steel nozzles. So that's about a $50 upgrade right off the bat. If you buy an X1 Carbon, it comes with all that already. Sure. Nah. I have to say that's one of the bad things that does come with that. If you're using abrasive filaments, which realistically most people aren't using abrasive filaments, but the people who do, just keep that in mind. These do not come with hardened steel or hardened steel extruder gears and a hardened steel nozzle. Just a heads up there. It is something important. And I don't believe you can even get a hardened steel on a 0.2, another caveat. But that's a different story for a company I don't understand. Next, I'm going to go to the PTFE. This is a nitpicky one, I just have to say it. Inside this printer right here, the PTFE tube that connects to the top of the printer, you can't see it, but the PTFE tube up there that feeds into the top, if you don't secure it well enough, it rubs on the top glass. And that's why I have a glass riser up here to help with that, but it will rub up there, which causes more breakdown, which also causes more dust in the printer, which leads to things not sticking to the build plate. It's kind of a domino effect. It's something to watch out for. Make sure you secure your PTFE tube because it will rub on the top. And that sounds super nitpicky, but I've had that cause failures. Mainly when it comes to unable to pull back on the filament with the AMS unit. It says it gets stuck, bends too much, whatever it may be. But that's one thing. Next up, I'm going to go with poop. It's messy. These printers are messy. It's kind of one of the downsides to printing multicolor if you have an AMS unit on these. And even if you don't have an AMS and you were just using normal color printing, by that I mean one color at a time, it will still purge filament. It'll do that every time without fail, even if you disable the AMS. Maybe they fixed that, I don't know. It's been a long time since I've printed without one. But that still leads to the point where it's going to put waste out the back, and you have to clean it out. And in the ugly section, I'll cover what that really means as someone who could forget about it. And the last thing on my bad list, which pushes you into the X1 Carbon, is there's no spaghetti detection or fail safes. So the only time I know that this printer has failed is usually because of the fact that the front of the extruder has fallen off. That's when it stops. And by that point, usually you're too late. So you just lost. So I have these right here. That's what happened to me yesterday. So they failed, and I ended up not cleaning out the poop chute in the back, And we're going to jump right into the ugly section because that's what this covers. This was 18 hours of print time lost because I forgot to empty out the poop chute. That's totally on me, but there should be some sort of detection there to not allow you to do that. And what ended up happening is that the purge chute in the back over there got filled up because the box I had on the back wasn't big enough, and waste piled all the way up to the top of the chute, and the nozzle was purging into it, got stuck, went to move, and it skipped steps because of that, and it knocked off the front. So I lost 20 hours of print time, and it ended up causing my models to fail. It also has a chance to bend your nozzle, and that is one of the caveats of these machines, is there's nothing there to tell you, hey, look, the purge chute's full, which I know is probably a pain, but it really should be included somewhere. Or if you're going to buy these, know that that is a problem if you plan to do multicolor printing. It will damage your machine. Even if you don't want to believe it will, it will. I've watched it happen. 2 days ago, because that happened on both these machines, you get busy, life's busy. I had to replace 2 nozzles, which is $60 down the drain, right? Because I have the complete hot end. So next thing on the ugly list is going to be maintenance. Doing maintenance on these printers, other than nozzles and extruder gears, absolute pain, and it's not easy. And people will say, oh, you just don't know what you're doing. No, I know exactly what I'm doing. The problem being, if you want to replace those carbon rods in there because they go bad, it's an $80 part. That's not too expensive, right? Except you have to rip your entire thing apart. The entire printer has to come apart. And that is daunting for people who have no idea what they're doing. I've done it on this one right here. It took me about 6 hours to rip it apart, get it back together, test it, do your calibration printing, your dynamic flow calibrations, all those 3MF files you have to download and print. Maintenance is not easy. Plus, if you want to do maintenance on the Z drive motor, it's on the bottom of the printer, and that's how you tension it. And then on the back side of the printer, there's a bunch of circuit boards in there around that motor that you have to maneuver around to fix. And it's just not user-friendly. I don't think Bamboo designed it to be user-friendly. It's nice they sell you all the parts, but at the same time, if I was a complete novice and I had no idea what I was doing, and I came to the conclusion that I needed to replace, say, a linear rod or a Z-axis screw, I'd probably sell the printer because I wouldn't know what to do. It's not easy. Next up, and this is more of a Bamboo Studio thing, and I've noticed it. Maybe you have noticed this as well. I do a lot of multicolor printing. And this is actually a good example of what has happened. So I printed these shiny Jolteon right here. And I don't know if you guys can tell on screen, but there is a black line around the eyes and ears from where it hasn't purged enough. This is mainly a problem with Bamboo Studio. It doesn't automatically adjust your flushing volumes. And I don't really know if that goes into the printer's fault or Bamboo Studio. I'm going to blame Bamboo Studio. It's kind of an ugly thing that you should know about, though, because this was 8 hours or 12 hours and it ruined it. And it's all because I forgot to tell the A1 Mini, or my P1P here, P1S, my God. I forgot to tell the P1S that, hey, you need to adjust your flushing volumes because the last printer that I used to slice with was an A1 Mini. So it used A1 Mini flushing volumes on a P1S and it didn't purge enough. Grr, that's really all I have to say. And that's a Bamboo Studio issue. I've submitted bug reports. I'm sure other people out there have noticed it, but maybe not. It's one thing to keep in mind that if you switch from A1 Mini or A1 even to a P1S or an X1 in the same slicing file, because it's simple to do, make sure you update your flushing volumes because you will ruin your model. It sucks. Honestly, it's pissed me off more time than I can count. It's really easy to forget too because it just is. Now I do it literally every time before I print. Another thing that kind of goes into the ugly with the purge buildup and the poop chute getting blocked and clogged is that it's really easy to damage nozzles on these machines. And people say, oh, no, it's not. Yeah, it is. It is. I haven't damaged too many, but I've heard stories of other people. I've been on the Reddit postings and the Bamboo Wiki. it's pretty easy to damage a nozzle on these machines, especially because at the back of the printer, the very back of the build plate is where the nozzle rubs, which means it wears down the nozzle a little faster and the build plate a little faster. That's, of course, to clean the nozzle off, so when you go to do your printing or when it goes to bed leveling, it doesn't leave little dots all over the bed, which could cause problems, failures in the future. But it's also really easy with the purge chute back there getting clogged to damage or bend your nozzle. That's the only time I've ever had them bend is because of that purge chute. But I've never had a nozzle be damaged for other reasons, other than it's pretty easy to reach in there and forget to put your build plate on. These don't have build plate detection, and your nozzle hits the bed. Or if you forget to put the 2 screws in on the nozzle, I'm not speaking from experience, of course, but if you forget to put the 2 screws in, you go to do bed leveling, it'll bend your nozzle because it can't hit what it's looking for. Yeah, just keep that in mind. The nozzles are probably the easiest thing to burn up on this. And then this kind of goes with the good, but supports on these machines, because of how fast they print, are a lot more likely to fall off. When a support falls off, everybody's heart sinks because that support is supporting something that can't print without it. You might get lucky and you might get a good bridge because cooling on these is pretty solid. But that's one thing you really have to watch out for, is the speed at which you print can cause narrow supports to break or fall off, which in turn leads to more failed prints. Along with the faster speed, the caveat to that is it's a lot easier to damage parts. So the faster you go, because you can turn it to ludicrous speed, which is real fast. I think it's 150% faster. I don't know. I don't ever use it, but it's significantly faster. At ludicrous speeds, you get more failed prints from my experience, and the fast speed at which you print does cause more support failures if you're doing really basic support type stuff. And I think I have a model in here in a trash bin somewhere. I do not. I don't have him in here anymore. Okay. Well, I had that problem yesterday where I was printing Bellsprout, and you'll see him on the channel here shortly, for sale for the Etsy store, and because of how fast the printer was going, it knocked support loose and his leaves didn't print right. It's the nature of the beast, and it just kind of is what it is, but I think I'm going to kind of sum it up here. Would I recommend the P1P or P1S? I wouldn't recommend the P1P anymore, simply because the P1S is $100 more and you get a fully enclosed printer. If you live anywhere that's super dusty, the fully enclosed printer is 100% necessary. Not so much to keep temperature and just to keep dust out. That's a big one. You would not believe how dusty a 3D printer gets with all the fans and air moving around in there. It really is easy to do. But I would highly recommend the P1S over the X1 Carbon for the average user. I have some friends with an X1 Carbon, and a lot of them wish they would have just bought a P1P or a P1S, not a P1P. Wish they would have just bought a P1S because they don't use all the advanced features of the X1 Carbon. A lot of them, I would say a good majority of people don't print with special filaments. And by that I mean glass filled, carbon fiber reinforced, or glow in the dark filament. A lot of people just print with PLA and PETG. If you guys are just going to print with PLA and PETG, P1S all the way. If you're going to do those more advanced things, then you're like, especially polycarbonate, I would definitely go with an X1, and I'd go with the X1 simply because you also get a higher bed temperature, and you get all the standard hardened steel fittings and everything like that right off the bat instead of having to upgrade to it. So that's been my review of the Bambulab P1S and P1P. Highly recommend you buy a P1P on this sale. I don't think you'll regret it. If you want to buy the X1 Carbon, be my guest. It really is just a better P1S. But if you're not going to use all those extra stuff, then save yourself a little bit of money. Maybe get an extra AMS, get some extra filament, and definitely pick up a P1S. So thank you, everybody. I just want to say one more thing before I end this. I'm doing a giveaway over on my Patreon. Oh, let me stretch. Right here for Yosemite Sam. This model's by Red Dad Steve. I'm doing a giveaway on my Patreon over there for my Not Basic and Super Not Basic tiers. And also thank you to Nathan Tebow for being one of my first Patreon subscribers. I appreciate it. The support means a lot. And also don't forget to check out the Etsy store, which will be linked down in the description below, where you can buy models like this, right here. And the ones over there that Yosemite Sam just blocked. So please check out everything down in the description. I really appreciate it. And my dog just almost broke something. But thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.